Power on. The Bluetooth device is ready to pair. Radio mode.
Iran has an arsenal of ballistic missiles and says that if attacked, it will strike U.S. targets in the region. The U.S. and Israel bombed Iran's nuclear facilities for 12 days last June. Trump is not saying what the U.S. might hit in a future attack. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
The U.S. Supreme Court will hear a case April 1st challenging President Trump's executive order denying automatic citizenship to the children of parents who enter the U.S. illegally or on a temporary visa. At issue is whether Trump's order violates the 14th Amendment to the Constitution or the Nationality Act. U.S. stocks have ended the day lower, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 200 points at 48,846. The S&P is down 29 points at last check. You're listening to NPR News. Award-winning actor Catherine O'Hara has died at the age of 71. In a statement to NPR from her agent, Missy Davy, O'Hara passed away today at her home in Los Angeles following a brief illness. O'Hara's screen credits include lead and supporting roles, such as the films Beetlejuice, as well as Home Alone and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Skier Lindsey Vonn has crashed in her final downhill race ahead of the Winter Olympics. Vonn, who was 41 years old, was hoping to make an Olympic comeback this year after coming out of retirement. The crash could put that in jeopardy. NPR's Becky Sullivan has details.
Vonn was the third person to crash in the downhill race at Crans-Montana, a resort in Switzerland. She lost control after a jump and skidded into the sideline nets. Injuries had forced her to retire back in 2019. Her 82 World Cup wins were then the most for any female skier. Since then, she got a new titanium knee and started training again. Her comeback has been astonishingly successful. This winter, she's won 2 World Cup races and reached the podium in 5 others, but the Olympics were always the goal. Now that's in doubt. After the crash, Vonn was able to ski to the finish line herself, seen holding her left knee. Then she was airlifted off the course for further evaluation. The Olympic downhill race is just over a week away. Becky Sullivan, NPR News.
U.S. stocks have ended the day lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed down 180 points to end the day at 48,892. The S&P was down 29 points, and the Nasdaq was down 223 points, nearly 1%. You're listening to NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Pew Charitable Trusts, sharing about the state of housing in America on the After the Fact podcast, available at pewtrusts.org/After the Fact, and the Doris Duke Foundation.
Programming on KCCU is underwritten in part by Great Plains Technology Center, preparing individuals for success in work and life, serving as a driving force for economic development in Southwest Oklahoma. Great Plains Technology Center in Lawton, 4500 Southwest Lee Boulevard, and in Frederick, 2001 East Gladstone.
Listener support keeps KCCU strong, thanks to listeners like Virginia Lucas, Michael and Christy Wood, and Nancy Rocker.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California. And I'm Juana Summers in St. Paul, Minnesota, where tensions remain high after weeks of an immigration crackdown that's left 2 people dead, Renee Macklin-Good and Alex Preddy, both shot during encounters with federal agents. Despite the Trump administration signaling a willingness to de-escalate things earlier this week, Minnesota's Democratic governor is now skeptical.
I know who I'm dealing with. I know that they're not going to keep their word.
Earlier today, I sat down with Governor Tim Walz at the Minnesota State Capitol. He was responding to remarks from President Trump Thursday night, who signaled that he's not going to withdraw ICE agents from Minnesota.
Agents out of Minnesota. We want to keep our country safe. We'll do whatever we can to keep our country safe. So you're not pulling back? No, not at all.
As my conversation with Governor Walz continued, I asked where things stand now with Operation Metro Surge in his state.
I would say since my conversation on Monday with the president, I don't think there's been a lot of change. There's less smoke on the ground, but I have no indication that the numbers have come down. I will say I'm concerned over the last day or so, the developments. It's not helpful when Tom Homan talks about deployments and he referred to the state of Minnesota as a theater. That's words that are used in wars and in deployments to foreign countries. And again, the last night when the president was asked if he was drawing down, he said no. I believe it. I believe that part about what he said. So as far as it goes, it feels like there is a pause, but the tension amongst people here and the skepticism amongst people here is high. And I have reiterated time and time again that we want to find a way forward with this. It can only do that factually with them. But we need some type of action.
Let me ask you this. This is a president and administration that is constantly changing its mind and its message. Earlier this week, you heard the president say he wanted to de-escalate a little. And as you point out, you just heard the president say, no pullback. How do you lead your state, to lead the people here in Minnesota, when you don't know what's coming next? You don't know what direction they're going to turn.
Yeah. Well, I think you stay grounded in our values. We stay grounded in caring for our neighbors. We stay grounded in that justice matters. We stay grounded in staying peaceful in the face of this, and grounded in encouraging people to continue to take pictures, dictate what was here. And I said it, and I don't even think the president himself would disagree with this. They have not changed their goal of mass deportations. They may try and change their tactics a little bit, but it doesn't change the underlying mission here, which is to cause great fear and chaos in communities. And to be very honest, very ineffective in actually targeting what they say is the worst of the worst. I'm pretty sure Liam, our little 5-year-old, was the worst of the worst. And as the world has found out, not only are Renee and Alex not the worst of the worst, they might be the best of the best.
We heard Board Reserve Tom Homan, who was here in your state. He spoke and he seemed to suggest that he wanted to see cooperation from you and other local leaders. And one of the things that he suggested he wanted to see is a reduction in interference from protesters and activists on the ground here in the Twin Cities. We're speaking, I just want to note, on a day when there's a general strike here in Minnesota, across the country. Are there any agreements on demonstrations that you're willing to make?
I'm not going to compromise on the First Amendment. I'm not going to allow Tom Homan to characterize what are constitutionally protected rights of peaceful expression of grievance against the government. It's foundational to our democracy. They are trying to twist reality here with peaceful protests. They tried to do it with Alex, and they will go back, they will dig up your kindergarten yearbook or whatever to try and discredit you. Look, I think there's really little debate in this. Had there been no video of that, Alex and Renee would both be deemed terrorists. Their families would probably be detained by now, and they would continue to spout these lies. Kristi Noem continues to go on and try and defend. Now, I will give her this. She maybe has a lawyer or something now. I don't know. She's saying she's just taking marching orders. I remind everyone that's no defense. That's no defense in carrying out what they've done.
I'll note that the administration has not only faulted protesters and observers. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote a letter last week, and she criticized you personally for calling federal law enforcement, and I'm quoting here, Trump's modern-day Gestapo. How do you respond to her accusation that your rhetoric and remarks from other state officials aren't doing enough, in her words, these are her words, to support the men and women who are risking their lives to protect Americans and uphold the rule of law?
Well, I've never said anything other than to be peacefully protesting, and I'll stand by my words. I have to use the English language to describe what I'm seeing. And in America, there are very little analogous descriptions I can give to what we're seeing. So I'm using what I have in my vocabulary to describe what I see. And I think everybody who woke up Saturday morning and witnessed that probably would come up to the same conclusion. Look, the Attorney General is not a serious person. And then I think we saw through this, and they said the quiet part out loud. I understand my job is I need to, and again, dealing with what would be a normal world, my job is to approach this measured, to be a statesman, but I'm not naive. That's not who I'm dealing with. That is not who these folks are. So to America, I would just say, I'm going to continue to speak up. I'm going to continue to express my anger and disgust and my expectations that Pam Bondi be an independent voice for justice and not take their marching. Look, the president telegraphed what was happening here. This was about retribution. And that means retribution to the people of Minnesota. It's retribution to the way we do things. And I think many people here in Minnesota knows is they cannot stand that this state honors immigration.
I do want to push you though on the political environment, the rhetoric that we're seeing lately. It is not lost on me that you and I are having this conversation in a state where we saw State Representative Melissa Hortman, another Democratic lawmaker. Melissa Hortman was killed. What happened with Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman, this week? Do you feel at all that you have a responsibility to help bring the temperature of the rhetoric that we're hearing and seeing?
Yes, that's why I talk about peacefulness all the time. That's why I make sure that we're staying within the bounds of the law. I'm not going to say, gee, you guys should just be a little softer here when you push someone to the ground and put a gun near their head. I'm going to find the words that express the outrage that I'm feeling. Yes, I think about it, and I got to be candid with you. I'm probably doing a pretty good job of not speaking what's truly on my heart about these people to try and find that. That is part of politics. That is part of how you get things done. But in this moment, this has transcended politics to be a fundamental moral issue. So if you're asking me, am I going to compromise with authoritarianism? Nope. Am I going to compromise on an erosion of civil liberties? Nope. So I'm going to go ahead and reject that both sides are responsible for this. There's one clear side that's doing this.
Yesterday on All Things Considered, my colleague spoke with Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, and he invoked you. So I'd like to ask you about something that he said, speaking about the situation here in Minnesota.
There are people that need to be apprehended because they're criminals, murderers, rapists, sex, human, drug traffickers that need to be apprehended and either jailed or deported. And that right now is what these sanctuary cities and people like Mayor Frey and Governor Walz are resisting, and that have led to the tragedy. Had there not been an organized effort to resist those law enforcement actions, those two individuals in Minneapolis would still be alive.
Governor Walz, how would you respond to that?
Well, that's false, and I do have history of knowing this. Senator Johnson is a fool. He's wrong. Minnesota is not a sanctuary state. Minnesota is a bottom 10 state for violent crime. You've got a United States Senator that, once again, did he not watch the videos? Did he not see what happened there? And I'm just incredibly proud that Minnesotans are not going to stand back and take the boot to their neck. They're not going to stand back and capitulate on their responsibilities. And I'm pretty sure that Senator Johnson's been on the wrong side of history on every single vote he's taken. So I will say this, the folks of Wisconsin, we have deep affinity with. I can tell folks and tell this administration, if they try the same thing in Wisconsin, they'll get very similar results you're getting in Minnesota. So I don't really put much stock into Senator Johnson.
I mean, it's not lost on any of us that this is a state that has been through a lot in recent years, from the killing of George Floyd in 2020. Your state's now another flashpoint involving violence. You've talked about, I've heard you talk about in recent days, the moral outrage done to the Minneapolis community. Governor, how do you intend to help people here heal from the trauma that they are experiencing?
Yeah, well, the thing is our people will do it. We are a resilient people. And just to be clear, the president bending a little bit and then, of course, backtracking now, the reason that he is bending is because of the faceless, nameless leadership that's on the streets that is organizing peaceful protests at a scale you saw it. The same thing is why we needed justice with George Floyd, that policing has to be about trust. So Minnesotans have been through this, but you're right. The murder of one of our true shining stars in Melissa and Mark, the attempt on a senator and his wife, we have been through a lot. And in each one of those cases, we're mocked, downplayed. Our state's grieving.
Yeah.
I'm grieving with them. But I think what we understand is this is bigger than us. And I would just, to your listeners, say this happens everywhere. It's much easier to hold a democracy than to try and get one back. And I'm just going to state it that, again, I'll go ahead and we are on the right side of history.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you for telling the story.
All Things Considered is a production of NPR News, which is solely responsible for its content. Like a story you heard on this or another NPR program? Share it with a friend at npr.org. While there, you can also hear stories you missed, enjoy expanded content, or connect to your favorite member station, wherever you are. Get the NPR app for your mobile device. You can also lean back and enjoy npr.org, optimized for the iPad. This is NPR.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
KCCU, underwritten in parts by Scott's House of Flowers in Lawton and Elgin. With over 50 years of experience, Scott's House of Flowers knows how to do Valentine's Day. Ordering early on their website is the best way to make sure your sweetheart gets the perfect gift. Selections 24 hours a day online at scottsflowers.com.
North Texas Nonprofit Institute in Wichita Falls is offering a free webinar series that teaches nonprofit businesses how to use technology that's available to them to make their daily operations more efficient. More information about the dates and how to register at ntxnonprofits.org.
I'm Tanya Mosley. If you've been thinking about selling that car you don't use anymore, skip the hassle of selling. Donate it to this station instead. It could mean hundreds of dollars in support.
To donate your vehicle or to learn more about car donations, visit our website, kccu.org, and click on Vehicle Donation. Support your public radio station, KCCU.
Programming on KCCU is made possible in part by the Cancer Centers of Southwest Oklahoma. Fear and uncertainty end where hope begins at the Cancer Centers of Southwest Oklahoma. Compassion and expertise, together with hope and healing that's close to home. More information at ccswok.com.
When you listen to Morning Edition, you can count on us to keep you up to date on the latest news, which is coming at us fast these days. There's also room for stories that make you smile.
These composers remind us that even though we still have tough times today, always remember you have to be determined to be who you were born to be.
Listen weekdays to Morning Edition from NPR News.
Morning Edition from 5 to 9 on KCCU.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from your part-time controller specializing in nonprofit accounting and committed to supporting nonprofits with financial management services such as budgeting and forecasting. yptc.com/NPR. And from the Cy Sims Foundation, since 1985, supporting advances in science, education, and the arts towards a fairer, more just, and civil society. More information is available at cysimsfoundation.org.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang. And I'm Juana Summers. All week, the White House has scrambled to respond to public outrage over the fatal shooting of VA nurse Alex Preddy by federal agents. It has changed oversight of its immigration operation and even acknowledged that agents may not have been following protocol. But the administration continues to maintain that Preddy should not have had a firearm. And for some Minneapolis residents, this claim is felt completely out of touch with the reality of gun culture there. NPR domestic extremism correspondent Odette Youssef is here with more. Hi there.
Hey, Juana.
Hey, so Odette, there's been a whole lot of talk about Alex Preddy carrying a gun, but as I recall, you did some reporting out of Minneapolis on gun culture there, right?
I did, yeah. So last winter, I was in Minneapolis looking at an organization called Security, and they offer a number of services. And one of them is they offer permit to carry classes. And at that time, right after Trump's reelection, they were seeing a spike in clients from marginalized backgrounds, you know, people that they characterize as on the left end of the political spectrum. But even before that, Juana, they told me that the first turning point was really after George Floyd's killing at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer in 2020.
And how did Floyd's death change gun culture in Minneapolis?
Well, here's how Kimmy Hull put it to me. She's the founder of Security.
People carry much more regularly than they did before George Floyd. You know, a lot of it has come from the fact that, especially with having to learn how to take care of ourselves, you know, through our community defenses, it's become a normal thing to carry.
So to rewind a bit, Juana, you'll remember that after Floyd was killed, there were protests around the country. But in the communities really directly around where Floyd was killed, you know, faith in police was really broken. And in fact, police essentially abandoned service to some of those areas as the unrest was continuing. So
residents felt that their safety was up to them. And for some, part of that meant learning to use and carry a gun. And I looked at data from the state, and they show a big jump in people applying for permits to carry in 2020 and 2021. Although
The radio
the
was
data are
on. Do you have a radio? Yes, I have a radio. Oh. I'll show you in a minute. Yes, I have a radio. Look at that.
Heidi.
I know. Yeah. Oh shit, I forgot the one. Yeah. Anyway.